So we're here. Welcome to NeoCon, everybody. Give us a round of applause, man. So we have Jessica, Eric, and Jeremy. Jeremiah, is that correct? 5? All right, thank you, brother. What I will say is this is my first time ever moderating any panel, so if y'all have expectations of how they should go, please just have grace with me. But it is an honor and a blessing to be here with you all today. I want to start with a simple question with you guys, and y'all can each answer individually. Why design? Why art? And why now? You could choose which one you want to respond to.
I'll jump in. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I think for me, why design relates a little bit to my collective floating museum. And when I moved to Chicago, I was really struck by some structural things in Chicago, like, for instance, the museum campus. And where cultural capital lies in the city of Chicago from a built environment standpoint. And we had a lot of questions about that. And if we could reframe through design, art, interdisciplinary practice, like where culture is, not necessarily, like if it's being made, because it's being made all throughout the city, but what sort of platforms we could build through design and art thinking to spread and redistribute that cultural capital, because a lot of it exists here, like where we're sitting, like a lot of it exists downtown, but folks are still like doing their block parties, doing their thing in all the neighborhoods across the city, but sometimes they need a little money in their pocket, sometimes they need a little platform built or a spotlight shown. So I think that might be a roundabout answer, sort of why design right now. Because I moved here 17 years ago.
Where you from?
Rural Vermont.
Okay.
I don't know. Are there any Vermonters in the crowd? It's okay. It's like more. No. I'm a proud Vermonter, but more cows than people. Like, I get that. But when I, just moved here, there's some things that shifted, but there's more work to be done. So sort of why design, why now? For me, that really gets me going in terms of cultural redistribution.
Yeah, I can jump in there. So why design? Because design is intentional. Also, design has a lot of stories in it, right? So in a million years, we're all gone, and say aliens come here, and they look at our artifacts, right? They're gonna look at our stories, and look at our art, and they'll go, maybe that's true, but they're really what's gonna tell a story about who we were, or the things we left behind. I wanna make sure that my community is able to leave behind their stories, right? So we do that through objects, the things we make, the things we build, right? I can write all I want about me having hair and all my combs, whatever, but you go to my bathroom, there's a shaver and some shea butter, right? I was bald, right? But those artifacts tell my story, and I wanna make sure that some of the communities that usually don't have a chance to tell this story, we have a chance to tell our story through design. And why now? I wish it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. So why now? Because this is where I am right now, and I want to start right now.
Yeah, I think for me, I come to design in terms of culture and creation of communities with the work that I do at Global Gardens, and that's specifically why now. For us at Global Gardens, refugee and asylum seekers are being under attack right now, so amplifying their voices is really important in this time.
Wow. And that's important that you kind of think about when we're talking about this time. You are projecting towards the future based off of what we're experiencing today in these urban settings. So I really want to ask you, how refugee farming helping that shape the future of the project, and what does the Center of Agricultural Knowledge in an urban setting mean, and what can it be, and what are you aiming towards?
Sure. I think that for us, a lot, and just in the US in general, there's a Western and capitalistic view of agriculture where you're monocropping and doing all this kind of thing. Whereas centering, refugee and asylum seeker voices, immigrant voices, and using their knowledge. A lot of the farmers that I work with, they come from subsistence farming backgrounds, so they, in their home country, just would grow whatever they needed to survive. And a lot of them already use a lot of things that are hot in agriculture right now, permaculture and regenerative agriculture, and that was inherent in them. So I think that centering that knowledge will create a more equitable future because it centers their voices at the center of the food system, as well as for our environment too. It's better for us to use regenerative agriculture for the environment.
Thank you. And so, Eric, I want to ask you, how did you envision provisions and nourishing? And give us a little background on provisions. How did it start? But thinking about how it, one, nourishes, but also is a community-led initiative, and how does it actually impact the community?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One, I'm a designer. Two, I'm a member of the Love Fridge Network, which is a mutual aid network in Chicago that hosts, right now, there's 20 mutual aid fridges, meaning anybody can put food in and take food out. So even though I knew a lot about food apartheid, that was my introduction to doing the work, right? I'm also an Inglewood resident, and a lot of what my firm does, Made in Inglewood, is I always say that we show the extraordinary in the community, right? So I brought that up because Inglewood, there's a lot going on. Go check it out. There are a lot of farms being built through Grow Greater Inglewood. There's a lot of space making being done through the Resident Association of Greater Inglewood. There's a lot of talk about food and sovereignty, but what I realize is what is being missing is the stories, right? And that's in rendering food, cooking food, right? When we cook food, we make food. Not only do we tell stories, is how we talk about culture. And I talk about culture a lot when I talk about design, when I teach design. The best way to talk about different cultures, usually to talk about the food. So this space is meant to be a space that we are developing. So even though I'm the designer, I have the space, I'm designing it with my neighbors, right? In the fall, they'll be learning how to weld, so we can weld up the artwork and the fences and things like that. And it's really important that we do it together because through that, we're telling a story, right? I can tell all the stories I want. That's my story. If I have 40, 50 people who put their hands on it, now I've told a community story. So along with the food we're preparing and the cultural stories that are being exchanged there, but also the stories around how do I weld this thing? How does it go together? How do we want it to go together? And maybe somebody has a different idea that my design brain, because I'm so trained in the way that we do design, may not have thought of, right? And that starts to look weird and starts to look different. And now we have a monument to what the community is and not a monument to what Eric wants.
Wow. What makes me think is this idea that things are available, but they're not necessarily accessible. When I think of the floating museums work, you guys are popping up all over the city. I don't know if you guys have seen, hopefully it's in this slide, but these floating exhibitions that you all are creating is making things more accessible. And I want to speak to that. What was the genesis of you guys saying, hey, how do we step outside of these unorthodox spaces and coming into community and activating through this expression of art?
Yeah, I moved to Chicago.
Who's making these things?
Who's making? That's a good
they're
question.
Huge, y'all.
Yeah, we collaborate. We have a team, and then we work with a lot of people on our projects. But I moved to Chicago from New York City and only been to the Guggenheims and the Whitneys and these sorts of big philanthropic museums. And my partner, Fahim Majid, took me on a basement tour of the DuSable Museum. And we walked in, and there was like a Charles White painting sitting next to a Mr. T lunchbox. And my brain melted. I was like, what, I had a lot of questions, but one of them was about hierarchies in regards to what's valuable. And I was coming in cold to DuSable, knew nothing, fresh to Chicago. And we just were on this tour, and the curator started walking us through, how DuSable's collection was built, and it came out of a community need, not some big top-down philanthropic thing. And we just started talking about museums in town, and if we could challenge a museum model, and what happens if you think about the museum, the city as museum, neighborhoods as galleries, and folks who live in communities, the cultural producers, as opposed to going to a brick and mortar museum.
Yeah.
And then, we've been working for 10 years, so we've been doing a lot of different things. Our first project, though, is on the river, Chicago River. and we're called Floating Museum. That might have been a bad move because people think we're like the water people, and I can't swim very well. So we do drift, through park space, through river space. We haven't quite done airspace yet. So I'm thinking a little about helium, but we also do inflatables. So just the image you're seeing on the screen is a new inflatable monument we're making, and those get trucked around. So we move them around, but sort of back to my point earlier, folks are doing work everywhere, and we don't drop things in like aliens to communities. Some of the point of these big inflatable monuments is to actually bring attention to somebody who's been doing a farmer's market for years, somebody who's been doing block party. And we work with a lot of different orgs to also support them and also give stipends out. So that's also something we think a lot about is resource distribution. But I could talk too long about this. Well, maybe we'll come back.
Yeah. But what I'm hearing though is this idea of inclusivity. What we also, as artists, designers, we experience these challenges. And so when we're faced with those challenges, like, what are some of the ones that you guys have experienced, whether permits or whether, finding the right fabricators? You talked about welding, when you guys are actually doing like site surveys for making sure the grounds are prepared, for you to actually plant. How are you guys overcoming some of these like challenges?
Sure, I can speak on in terms of farming. Urban farming, there's a lot of challenges. We were just talking in the green room about how to access water, right? A lot of urban farms access water through a fire hydrant.
Yeah.
They have to like put a whole rig on it, and so that's a whole issue. But some of the challenges, like logistically at a farm, at the moment, it's like water access, right? And luckily, the farm that I work at, we are now part of the Chicago Park District, so we just got a water line put in, but the issue that came up is that for whatever reason, we can't stop the water from, we have to have it continuously flowing. So we can't have sinks or anything going on the water because then it'll back up. And so this is just a very farm-esque issue that we're dealing with. But I wanted to speak on some of the larger issues that we have right now, today, which is federal funding being cut. So we historically have gotten a lot of funding from the USDA, and right now there's specific attacks on refugee farms across the country. So we've heard from some of our friends across the country that run these refugee farms that they got accepted a grant and then it was taken away because of because of supporting DEI initiatives, right? So for us, that's obviously a huge challenge because we're a small nonprofit. We're a team of 2 full-time staff, so we kind of do everything. I'm doing the compost, and then I'm also here, right? So and writing grants and things like that. So to attack that challenge, we're kind of trying to lean on our community, try to foster individual donations, applying for grants like these. So super grateful. Thank you guys for choosing us. And so I just wanted to tackle that issue specifically for my project.
Yeah.
I have a really good strategy.
Let's go.
Asking for help.
Wait, I need to get my notebook.
I don't know how to do a lot of stuff, but a lot of people do. So I think one of the things we think a lot about is like a dinner table model, particularly for design, and bringing folks to the table. And also knowing when to step out in regards to expertise. That's been really helpful. I don't know about wind loads. I'm sure some of you might in the audience in terms of maybe engineering or design. But somebody does, So for our inflatables, if a hurricane comes,
we want to just see this thing floating in the air somewhere,
you don't want it rolling down the. So but thinking about making space at our table for others.
Yeah. So that thing about asking for help, which I usually had a hard time doing. I come and do everything myself, but we're leaning on others to help out. There's also the designing the space while we're actually making a space, right? So as a designer, I want to be perfect, right? I want my community to have this beautiful gem of a thing in our community. But it doesn't necessarily have to be that yet. It's ongoing, right? I always believe in 1,000 little experiments. That's what this is. So trying to figure out a way to design it and build it or build it as we're activating it. And the last thing is, so I believe in a mutual aid framework and just trying to change the minds of everyone, right? From a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset, right? Because this kitchen is for everyone, and there will be a love fridge there. It'll be open to anyone, but making sure that when people approach it, they don't approach it from a, this is my thing, this is on my block, so it's mine, or this is from my neighborhood, so it's mine, right? To a, no, this is for everyone, and we all participate, we all take care of it. I know that's my mindset, but that isn't everyone's mindset, so just trying to slowly activate it to change that mindset, because it doesn't work if we approach it from a scarcity mindset, that this is mine, I'm gonna take all that I can. It has to be, we have to care for each other and care for the space as if it's ours, right? And I say ours, not mine, not yours, ours.
Yeah. What's interesting is like within that, it kind of speaks to this notion of education, right? And spreading awareness. And so, you're a professor at SAIC. How are you integrating this educational background into the work? And this is something I open up to you all is like, how are you spreading this? Like, what are some of the ways that you guys have had breakthroughs in terms of getting the message out? Is it just solely, keeping it localized? Or are you guys really trying to think about the city as a whole? Like, what is the approaches that you're taking to that?
I can jump in that because, so some of the stuff that's going into the space, SAIC students designed last semester. So I teach a class called Social Engagement Studio where we primarily work on the west side, North Lawndale. So we act as like a design consultancy for the community. But last semester, I brought them to the Inglewood neighborhood to see the space and try to experiment with food and what we're making and the celebration around food. But also it becomes a way of teaching outside the classroom, right? So most of the students at SAIC, I'd say 99.9% of them don't come from Inglewood, right? So how do I explain these different neighborhoods, different cultures to students who may not be from Chicago, may not be from Illinois, may not be from America, right? And I do that through food. And we talk about the different migration patterns through food. And matter of fact, if you look back in past 1940, you can't even find a lot of census data of who lived where, but we track it through food, right? And the food that came up from Mexico and the integration in the Mississippi Delta and how it came to Chicago and became its own thing. Chicago has all these weird foods that don't exist anywhere else, right? We have Puerto Rican food that doesn't exist in Puerto Rico. We have Jamaican food that doesn't exist in Jamaica, right? We have Italian food that doesn't exist in Italy because it's these little microcosm of people being forced together and forced to like deal and make it work. So all of that to say is I use that to spread the word, but also to just talk to people about listening to others, right? Because when I say I teach at SAIC, it's really me teaching students how to listen and engage in a way that's not so heavy, right? Because a lot of times we talk about Chicago, segregation can get really heavy. When I talk about food, it's a way to engage people, and we're also talking about design and anthropology and culture, et cetera.
Yeah, the first time I taught welding, one of my students was actually a certified welder. He was like, "Professor, that's not how you do it." And he like took the welder, and then I had him teach the rest of the class.
Let's go.
So I don't know, and when I started as a professor, that was really important for me, and I think just even in floating museums work, we do that same thing. Like we step back and we're the learners, But a lot of our students, we're all educators, and a lot of our students come along with us, and I try to employ them in some way. It's like trying to pipeline students into the sort of creative fields in whatever way we can. So, because that's really important. Because a lot of my art students are like, what are we going to do with that BFA? Like in a really practical way, like day after, where do I get my job?
Yeah.
So we write a lot of grants, so we try to work that part of it in too.
That's awesome.
I'm not a teacher or a professor of any sort, but so I have a very informal view of education and how I approach teaching folks or spreading information. So for me, for the project that the Design Museum is funding, it's a native prairie and pollinator project. So speaking at things like this, speaking at community events, tabling at community events is kind of how I approach disseminating that information. I'm also a big fan of zines. Is anyone a fan of zines? They're like little magazines. Anyone can use them. There's a huge history of like revolutionary information being spread through zines. So I created a little pollinator zine, and I have a couple with me, so if anyone wants one, come see me after. But one statistic that I think is very important about my project is that Illinois used to be 60% prairie, and now it is 0.01% prairie. And so we all have the ability to help restore that, even if it's small, even if it's like a balcony garden. You can plant native species that will improve the pollination in your area. And so that is what I'm hoping to achieve with this project. And in addition to that, we have a relationship with the American Indian Center. And so they have a plot of land at our garden, and they do indigenous planting workshops and things like that. So we're trying to include, some indigenous knowledge, and as well as just like knowledge about pollinator plants, and including native words, Potawatomi words for certain plants and traditions. So disseminating that information through zines, and then we're also going to be making like educational signage at the garden, so that folks that come into the garden can read about what plants are native to here, what are invasive, what they can do to help restore some pollinator and native prairie plants throughout Illinois. The other thing I'll say too is that food is culture, right? And food is love. And we totally are, that's like our whole thing at the farm. We also have a community kitchen, so our farmers, many times in the summer, you'll see intergenerational folks just together, and from different cultures, right? Like we have a variety of folks. Most people are from Burma or Myanmar, but within Burma, there's like over 100 different languages spoken. There's a bunch of different ethnic groups. So within the farm, there's like 6 different languages just within Burma that's spoken. So, so there's a lot of, we do, farmer picnics. There's a lot of just like enjoying each other's company, making food together. And we also do an event series. So this Saturday, shameless plug.
Shout out.
This Saturday, we're going to have one of our concerts. So we have a second Saturday concert series that centers around different cultural music traditions. So this weekend, we're going to be having a West African group, and one of our farmers from the Republic of the Congo is going to be there playing some Afro jazz. And then we're also having one of our farmers from Burundi cook some fufu and goat soup. So if you guys are free Saturday, come and check it out. Because food is love and it's culture, and so sharing that with the community, I think is one of the biggest things for us.
You just reminded me it's almost lunchtime. That sounds good.
What's cool, man, is like, we're talking about spreading awareness, education. I know for myself, like I'm doing a lot. Just recently purchased a building from an organization. We are doing a bunch of programming right now, and sometimes it's easy to just get so embedded in the work, but it's challenging to find inspiration. So I want to ask you all that, because like I'll just say on my way here, I'm like, Tanner's here, and I drove past the design museum and I see flocks of people just going inside. I'm like, yo, I love that. Like it's still moving, it's still motion, and that was inspiring for me. Something so simple to just be a reminder of the importance of just being available and accessible to people. So what's something that's inspiring you all during this time? Like, I don't know if it's a show, if like cutting the grass, I don't know, whatever it may be. What's inspiring you to continue to do the work or just be yourselves in this time?
I think some of our work looks to the past to get inspired. So like we're a little nerdy and dig deep into archives and things. And with our current project that we're going to be premiering, you just did a shout out. So premiering on August 8th and 9th in Bronzeville. I think one of the things that really inspired me was for our project, it was really inspired by this apartment building, Mecca Flats, that was built during the World's Fair. It was white-only hotel, was desegregated, and became a really important mecca for arts and culture, music, poetry, all sorts of things. Mies van der Rohe and IIT bought the apartment building, starved it of resources, evicted all the tenants, and then built Crown Hall, which you can still visit, a really important modernist building in Chicago. And it's a history. It's a very Chicago history. But I think to inspiration, that sort of organized us, that history, to do something about that in regards to visual storytelling. But as we were like in the archive, Mecca wasn't the only place. And it was like place after place after place, architecture after architecture started popping up. The Stroll, music venues, the Regal Theater. There were all these places. So we were like, oh, we got to start collaging all these stories together, because it was bigger than just one building.
Right.
So I think that really inspires me, in that archive.
So guys, go to the archives to find inspiration. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, or go back into history and find these moments that really get you going. Because those stories of, we repeat ourselves, and finding different solutions for those problems. Yeah.
I'm an introvert, but I get a lot of energy from just being around people. So even this morning, right? Like one of my neighbors was just outside barbecuing. It's like 8 in the morning, and they're cooking food, but in the front, right? Which you don't typically do, and it's an apartment building. And I just love the way we changed a neighborhood that wasn't really built for us, right? Like we live in multi-generational households, and we do things we don't really have private space. Like everyone's space is a public space, right? And so the way we change those spaces, right? Just someone just barbecuing right there on the sidewalk. I'm like, that's dope. Can I get something, right? Once I leave here, I'm gonna go back and get a plate. but also just seeing how people make space, right? And I'm going to an event in October called Wato in Dominica, and it's a huge Creole food festival at in a nature resort. But it's not like this fancy thing. It's just people out there with pots. And if you ever heard of the 3-stone method, you just get 3 stones, you light a fire, and you cook, right? You don't need fancy grills, you don't need a stove, and it's a huge festival. And just seeing that, seeing how people are having fun, and the culture and the music that's involved with it, it's just being with people and seeing how people make things work for themselves.
Yeah, I would say for me, I'm a huge believer in mutual aid as well. So something that's been inspiring me lately is the Albany Park Mutual Aid group. Over in Albany Park, they just opened a free store across from the farm. And so it's open, I think, Mondays, Wednesdays, Saturdays. You can go check them out, follow them, and do all the things to support them because they're doing great work. And so that's being just involved with them and coordinating with them. Like our farmers have been able to get a lot of supplies through them and also have been doing some sewing and art classes. So they do these free Skillshare classes, which is just so beautiful to see the community coming together. So I think in terms of community building, that is what's really inspiring me right now, and just being around people that have that similar mindset of supporting your neighbors is just so beautiful, and it's just fills my cup, so it just overflows. So. That's one thing, and then another thing too, in terms of plants and seeds, is the Rogers Park Seed Library.
Yep.
And they do awesome work. You can go and get so many different seeds, all sorts of plants. I literally just got a lemon bonsai tree, so I'm gonna have a tiny little tree. I'm not sure if it's small lemons or if it's regular size lemons, but I'll let you guys know. So they have the coolest seeds, and they're doing just great work and are super community oriented and things like that. So yeah, those are the things inspiring me.
This might be a little too much sharing. Is this being recorded? Destiny's Child. Destiny's Child also gets me going. Just listening to Destiny's Child, yeah.
Like which albums, which songs, bro?
Yeah. I like all of them.
You can
I don't want to get on a tangent, but.
Well, this is good. I want to ask you, in terms of the Floating Museums initiative with Mecca, in terms of the engagement, what are you guys expecting as a range of impact?
Yeah, so this is our first inflatable building. It's the size of a standard city lot. And it's going to have an interior. We got this rain problem in that it rains sometimes, and we do a lot of public work. So this is going to be our first space that folks can congregate inside. So it'll be a place for exhibitions, music, programming. And we're building it as we go. We have a lead archivist, Skylar Hearn, that's been doing a lot of digging into archives and collections of Bronzeville culture.
So you'll be able to go inside it?
You'll be able to go inside it.
Walk through? Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the inside is a photo collage of the interior courtyard of this building, Mecca Flats, which is this really beautiful, just this gorgeous skylight. It had these railings. So it's going to conjure sort of a ghost in a certain way and sort of resurrect this space that was, but spaces that were as well. And we do a lot of performance, poetry, and then we invite partners to come hang out with us. So that's also a really big, important part of our work is partnerships. So if you know anybody who, wants to hang out in a park, in our space with us and partner, we're like actively looking for partners. And we drift around. It's a little cold in Chicago in the winter, so usually the inflatables go away in the winter, so it's sort of warm weather.
But as you're doing this work, we're speaking about spaces that used to exist. Is this work inspiring you guys to support or work with other organizations that do have these cultural assets to their communities? Are you guys, like you said, collaborating, but how are y'all activating those spaces as well? Yeah,
we're partnering with a couple folks, and we're in early stages because we actually just got the inflatable. And like the Bronzeville Historical Society, a couple different places that hold archives, and we've also been working through Skyla on oral histories, because a lot of collections in Chicago, don't have that museum basement to go through and look through. So Skyla's been working a lot on she's amazing, oral histories as well. And then also like it's a design problem, like in a park, August, it's real hot maybe. How do you design an exhibition around that? So we're talking still about that for the inside.
And what's interesting, we're talking about resources here, so now we're talking about funding.
Yeah.
And there's different forms of capital. We talked about this idea of cultural capital too. And so with this grant, all of your recipients of it, again, let's give them a round of applause for that. It's not easy. How's this helping? Not only now, but are you also thinking of reallocating funds towards future projects or with this funding that you guys are receiving?
So sometimes I forget I got this funding. Literally yesterday I was out there digging holes to pour a foundation. So it helps a lot because I can spend time doing more programming and design work instead of doing all the physical work, right? So yeah, like I can pay someone to pour a foundation instead of me. Instead of me looking at the price, going like, oh, this how much? I'm gonna get out there with a shovel and a concrete mix and do it myself, right? But it also expands what we can do, right? So I don't have to spend that. What it would have been like 72 hours or 4 days doing the foundation. I can now like talk to more chefs and go like, all right, let's plan this so it's educational and people get something from it, right? Or planning the electrical because it's going to be solar power and then thinking about that, right? So I can do a lot more because this grant allows me to bring other people in and pay them, which is a big thing because I don't want I love people. My neighbor's going to help. Neighbors are going to help me. I know they will because I'm hard-headed. They know I need help. But I also believe in paying people for that labor too. So it allows me to do that too.
Yeah. To go off that, I also am out there like sometimes I'm just looking at some of the pollinator plants I planted with volunteers and just like. Some of the farmers make fun of me because it's mostly just weeds right now. But some people, have a view on weeds, and I'm like, no, there's flowers right here. So we're going to be working with a couple of organizations, and again, like, want to be able to pay people for the great work that they're doing. And so there's a collective worker co-op called Prairies Over Lawns. So they do a lot of really cool work. They help people design a prairie instead of their lawn. And so I did a workshop with them, and it kind of inspired me to add more pollinator plants to the garden. And so they help design spaces, specifically like where the best plants are for like what we're looking for. So pollinator plants too, I should mention, like they obviously attract pollinators to the garden, right? But then they can attract beneficial insects that then feed on some of the pests that come and eat some of the vegetables. So during the growing season, May through like November now, we interview the farmers every week. And so we hear about like the pests that they have, and then with that information, adding those beneficial plants that can attract those beneficial insects that'll feed off that is kind of, having someone that has infinite knowledge about these plants and being able to pay them equitably, I think is the biggest thing for us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Floating Museum, my collective, we had this dream when we started. We were like, we're gonna challenge museums. We're not gonna have a building, right? Like, that's the first thing. We're just gonna drift around, no bricks and mortar. And we're gonna be radical. And the final part of that thing was, we're gonna raise a dollar, and for every dollar we raise, we're gonna give $1 away. Like direct support. And like, what would a museum look like that did that? Because I can't tell you how many times I've went to museums, I've been asked to be on panels and things, and then I got hit with a $40 parking.
Oh.
Or whatever, it's just like these little things. Like, because those museums are maybe downtown, right? And all of that, right? And there's this financial component to that. But that's hard to do. To raise $1, to give $1. So I would say that we haven't quite been successful at that, but it's something we're trying to do. Just in regards to like equitable pay, but for folks who like work with us and for us, but beyond that, trying to be this economic engine as a museum model that supports folks in a different way than just saying, hey, you get an exhibition in my space.
Right.
Like what could different flows look like that go out from the institution? So, but not yet. We're working on it.
Yeah, so I mean, what we're seeing is like this idea of leveraging the different forms of capital, right? And as a response to that, it makes me see you guys as experts in different areas, learning how to really understand your resources that you have available to you, or the ones that you are in contact with like other institutions, like Design Museum, like, Driehaus, who has supported this activation. But what advice would you give to someone who's looking or who's activating or creating these types of spaces in their own respective communities?
It's going to sound counterintuitive, but probably doesn't make a lot of sense. But I'd say just start, right? And I hope it's going to happen. Every project I've done is because I'm stubborn. I just got started, right? This project just because I just started making barbecue grills and grilling for people. And then I was like, let's get other people come grill and make food. Maybe this can be a space, right? And it's not until I tried it that I knew there was a need for it, right? So the idea of like this space wasn't that I just went, we should have a kitchen. It's like, no, we have little kitchens all over the street. Everybody has a grill, someone has like a sink, whatever. And it's like, all right, let me try it and then grow from there. So it's this thing in placemakers called, it starts with petunias, meaning you just start planting something, then something grows out of it and it grows, right? So just start the idea, right? And also you have a lot more leverage once you've done that experiment to ask for more resources.
Yeah, to go off that, I think I'm a person that is very extrinsically motivated, so just telling someone my idea kind of helps me be like, okay, now I have to do it, right? So yeah, like getting started is the hardest part. And it's okay that you don't know everything. That's why we leverage our community. And yeah, I say just tell people about your idea, and then you never know who you're gonna meet, or maybe they know someone who can help you with something. So I think, yeah, telling someone, leveraging your community, that's my advice.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in we can't wait to make the world we want to see. Like, we just can't wait. And I think some of Floating Museum came out of like, then this is a selfish thing. Like, we hadn't had a museum show. So we were like, what if we made our own museum? And then we gave other people museum shows. So yeah, I think we can't wait.
No.
So.
And, as we're thinking about like, can't wait, there's this immediacy too. Right, you guys all are responding to these different needs. Have you guys made space for some of the wants that you're hearing, and how are you addressing that? Because I know for ourselves, it's like, oops, sorry, brother, I tapped my shirt. He told me not to do that. But when we're talking about like constantly focusing on these needs, some of the things I've heard is like, I just want to have a skating ring in our community, and that's a want. But that's something that's recreational. To me, that is a need. It allows for you to step away from the work. It allows for you to step away from like all the things you have to do as students, as parents, to do something fun, which creates these cultural experiences that become memories. How are you guys folding in like wants into the work and making it fun and engaging in that way?
I think for me, with the pollinator project, one thing that I would like to see is like more community involvement. And so I'm hoping to have a sort of community science program at the farm, so leveraging just community members that live in Albany Park to come and take photos of pollinators, so then we can track those pollinators from year to year and see like which are coming to the farm. So that's kind of my answer.
Yeah, so in terms of needs, so this project is a want, right? Like it is a weird research kitchen in the middle of a residential block in Inglewood, right? That's a want. But also I have to realize that I'm not providing like a service. I'm not a municipality. I'm not doing that, right? I'm focusing on our wants because I have the ability to do that. But also some of these wants help us put pressure on the city, the municipal, to get some of our needs, right? So we probably need a large full-service grocery store in Inglewood. We have farms and everything, but the kitchen, because of this want, and we're cooking nice thing, we need a grocery store, right? So yeah, I don't think it's my job it's actually not fair for me to even try to address those needs, because that's a much more high structural thing coming from the top. And I want to force that hand from them to address the needs. I'm a community member, I'm gonna address our wants, because the municipal doesn't usually do that.
That's a larger conversation right there. Think about that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we work with, not for. I think that's one of the things we try to do, and that it's hard. It's like everybody has desires, and like I'm thinking about helium now, and you know, but I think a lot of our work is.
Are you gonna Never mind. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. You know, I think a lot of the work just makes space for input and then like pivoting. So like, I don't know, Miss Jenkins, who's been doing a block party for 30 years. We're like, do you want a 30-foot inflatable sculpture? She might say no. And we're like, okay, how can we support otherwise? So I think we think a lot about that and pivoting. I think the other thing that I really love thinking about is like forcing a conversation through a spectacle. And then the conversation happens. It can go whatever which way. But like if you bring something into public space, people are going to talk about it, And then where that conversation goes, we don't control that, but like maybe you make space for that conversation.
So you guys are like magicians. You're cultivating these things to happen, just like I'm about to cultivate for the audience to ask some questions now. So I'm interested in hearing what you guys have to say to them or myself. Again, I'm sorry. Yeah. Don't be shy. There's no dumb questions. There's, some challenging questions.
We're actually going to put a Mentimeter slide up so that you can scan your questions so that you can recite them and we can hear them for you.
Oh, cool features. Let's go. Tech team. I've never experienced that before. All right, sorry about that. Please say your name and, a fun fact about yourself as well.
Hi, I'm Raya. I live down the street from the Global Garden, and I'd always wondered what it is, and now I know, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Thinking about, like the municipal resources, the federal resources that are there, maybe not. I know that one of the ways I've been trying to advocate is through use of the public library and resources that are, and resources that are there, right? Thinking about the resources we have, ensuring that they get there. The best way to make sure the library has money is to go to the library and use it so that the budget gets used, sort of that model. Thinking about what municipal resources have you found, right? Like I know the Sulzer Regional Library also has a seed bank. I know the Ainsley Arts Plaza is a huge part that's coming up for the 40th Ward. I don't live in Inglewood, but it's, again, like, what are some of those sources that you've been able to find, or have you been able to build those partnerships yet?
Maybe I'll start. So Floyd Museum started because I knew some art collectors. My partners knew some art collectors. I grew up working class, and I was obsessed with rich people. Just like, it was just a thing. Like I just, I don't know. It was just on my mind. And in Chicago with these art collectors, I was like, started noticing that folks were sitting on boards, and then they were just making donations. And both collecting art, but also supporting different sorts of causes in the city. And I think a lot about that in regards to funding, sort of private funding. public funding is tense right now, right? But I think like bridge building, in regards to finding folks who are the stakeholders and also gatekeepers for that municipal funding, if it's the state rep, you know, if it's your alderperson, you know, and making meaningful relationships with those folks. In terms of our work, that's helped a lot, as opposed to just like a cold grant application out into the universe. It's actually like inviting those folks down and having a coffee with them and just making relationships.
We have a really close relationship with our alderperson, Rosanna Rodriguez. She's a member of the farm, and so she's just been a great advocate for us personally. And in terms of like finding grants and federal funding or private funding, we've been working with an organization called Women Unite Chicago, and they do a lot of work, really great work. We're part of their cohort. They do a cohort every year for nonprofits across the city to provide consultation services, so like help with grant writing, and they helped us design a logo and et cetera, et cetera. So they've been really great. Women Unite Chicago, everyone look it up. They do some really great stuff. And then actually, no, I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I probably need to be better with reaching out relationships for a lot of those larger grants. Right now, almost all the work I've done has been private. So like, there's a group, the Chicago Food Sovereignty Coalition, right? They're a group of I don't know how many members, a lot of different groups, right, who come together to form this coalition to fight food sovereignty. They gave me funding so I can pay young people to help me build this space, right? RAGE, Resident Association of Greater Inglewood, through a relationship they had with the Cook County Land Bank, gifted me the land, right? So if I wouldn't have gotten that land through RAGE, and RAGE had a relationship with the Cook County Land Bank, because I wouldn't have been able to clear all the violations, all the taxes, everything behind getting that land. So I do appreciate that through the relationships, the private relationships I have with community members, I've done a lot. And now the next step is to kind of leverage that to asking for more, because I think we deserve more.
I think I can answer this question too, right? Okay. I think for us lately, it has been about like relationships and recognizing who are the people that are showing up. You know, really checking out the folks who are responding to our newsletters and like saying, hey, I want to actually attend, or donating and saying, how can we extend this relationship further? Which has been really helpful for us. But in terms of like the state and federal, this is a new space for us in particular. But what it's allowed for us to see is that there are those folks who have established those relationships, and how do we learn from them? Come to them with humility and say, hey, we don't know this arena. Can you guys share and like let us shadow you in some ways so we can learn? Or how do we collaborate? So that's been the name of the game for me lately, is just collaborating with folks who've already like received funds or resources from like the state or from federal funding to support some of our initiatives.
I also had this weird thing happen. I just wanted to, like, really concretely, a friend of mine who's a state rep had said, hey, have you ever lobbied? I was like, no.
Yes,
He's like, have you ever been to Springfield? I was like, no. He's like, you should go do it. And then we got a state grant. And like, it's just like, and that's what people do. You know, they go to lobby their state representatives, and it's just a pathway to potential funding. And I just, as an artist, I was like, what are you talking about? Like, no, I'm an artist. I'm in my studio. Like, I don't go to lobby day. So.
And it's crazy because like, you know, state reps have discretionary funds that they get each year. And it's like, oh man, I didn't know this until early this year. And so I'm like, okay, how do we tap into those folks or those conversations so we can reallocate some of those resources to the programs, to the initiatives, to the spaces that we're activating. So it's a great question. Thank you. Yeah. You didn't tell us your fun fact, though. I didn't forget one fun fact for you.
I thought the fun
Oh, it was, but you live close. Oh, okay, sorry. That is a fact. My bad. Let's go.
Yeah, come to the concert on Saturday.
I did want to ask you all a fun fact about yourselves, too, before we close out.
Fun fact about me, I've been really into making botanical drinks. So I just foraged some lilacs and I made some lilac soda. And I've just foraged some more lilacs, so we'll see what happens. I've been doing making a ginger bug, which is like a fermented ginger drink, and you can make like your own natural sodas and fermented sodas that are all the rage, but you can make it yourself for cheaper. So yeah, that's a fun fact about me right now.
I'm pretty good at archery, which is, I got really good when I was young. Don't ask how a kid in a dense urban South Side got practice archery. It probably wasn't the most legal way. But yeah, I got really, I had a bow, and my neighbors encouraged me to practice, and they set up a little thing for me, and I got really good at archery, so there you go.
What?
I once tried to reenact the Bay of Pigs invasion with pigs in Cuba.
Break this down. I don't know what that is, bro. I'm not.
Bay of Pigs invasion. It was like a tense moment. There was an invasion. No. Bay of Pigs in Cuba. Historical moment.
I don't know.
There's an invasion that didn't quite work out. But I tried to do a reenactment with actual pigs in Cuba, but the Cuban farmer who I was emailing back and forth with found out that I was American and canceled our deal.
Well,
but maybe that was for the better.
that's fair.
So, yeah.
I have one more. I'm really cool with this crow that lives above my house.
Heck yeah.
I got really cool with him during the pandemic, and I have a beef with the raccoons, and it crows whenever the raccoons come out, so it alerts me. Oh no, I have this really cool relationship. It leaves me stuff, so.
Yeah, and crows.
Second cool fact.
Crows will remember your face 7 years.
Wait, what?
In the future, yes. I listened to a whole podcast about crows, and yeah. So don't cross a crow. Let me just tell you.
They'll also teach other crows about you.
Yeah.
What the heck?
Yeah. So it's good you're cool with them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just want to say thank you all to our panelists. Thank you so much to NeoCon. Thank you so much to the Driehaus and Design Museum. And I believe that is a wrap.